Chapter 4.2 is about evaluating with negative exponents. So we're going to take a look and see what's happening here in our table to help us understand how to deal with negative exponents. So let's look at our pattern. What's happening with the exponent? The exponent is decreasing by 1 every time, which means the next exponent in our pattern is going to be 10 to the 0, and then 10 to the negative 1, to the negative 2, to the negative 3. Okay, what's happening on the right-hand side of our table? 1,000, then 100, then 10. So mathematically, what's happening? What are we doing? Well, we're dividing by 10 to get down to our next step. And that pretty much makes sense, since when we apply the exponent, when our exponent increases, we're multiplying by another value of 10. So when we go backwards, we're dividing by 10. Okay, that means that when we get to 10 to the 0, we're at 10 divided by 10, or 1. So 10, any number to the 0 power is 1. We talked about that the other day. Okay, so let's continue. If we're going to go down another step, we're going to divide by 10. So 1 divided by 10, 1 divided by 10, is 1/10, or 0.1. And again, we're going to divide by 10. Well, you know, dividing by 10 is the same thing as multiplying by what number? Dividing by 10 is the same as multiplying by 1/10. So if we're dividing by 10 to get to our next step, that's the same as multiplying by 1/10. So 10 to the negative 2 is like 1/10 times 1/10, or in other words, 1/100th. Okay, let's divide by 10 again. Or in other words, let's multiply one more time by 1/10. So 10 to the negative 3 is the same as 1/10 times 1/10 times 1/10, which is 1/1000th. Whoops. Let me erase that. Let's write it correctly. 1/1000th. So now take a look at the table. Look at the patterns. Can you describe what's happening when we have a negative exponent? Can you figure out what the trick is for evaluating a negative exponent? Well, if you figured it out, if you guessed right, the rule for evaluating with negative exponents is to take the reciprocal of the base and change the sign of the exponent. So let's try a couple of examples. If I had 1/3 to the negative 3rd power, I'm going to take the reciprocal of the base, which would be 3, and I'm going to change the sign of the exponent. That would make it 3 to the 3rd. And 3 to the 3rd is 3 times 3 times 3, or 27. Okay. What if I had negative 3 to the negative 3rd power? I'm going to take the reciprocal of the base. So negative 3 is negative 3 over 1. So I'm going to take the reciprocal, negative 1/3, and I'm going to make the exponent positive. That means I have negative 1/3 times negative 1/3 times negative 1/3, or in other words, negative 1/27th. One more example. If I have 2/5 to the negative 2 power, I'm going to take the reciprocal of the base, 5/2, and change the sign of the exponent, so 5/2 squared. That means 5/2 times 5/2, which gives me 25/4. Here's a couple of examples for you to try. Remember, take the reciprocal of the base and change the sign of the exponent. Now let's take a look at evaluating negative exponents within a bigger expression. Remember, we're still going to follow order of operations. So we're going to look for parentheses, then exponents, multiplication, division, and then adding, subtracting. So in the first example, 7 minus 8 times 2 to the negative 3rd plus 13. No parentheses, so we're going to go right for the exponent. So we've got 7 minus 8 and 2 to the negative 3rd. we're going to take the reciprocal of the base and make the exponent positive, and plus 13. So now we have to evaluate 1/2 cubed, so 7 minus 8 times, and 1/2 to the third power, 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2 is 1/8, plus 13. Now we're going to multiply. 8 times 1/8 is 1. That's the inverse property of multiplication. And then we're going to subtract, and last we're going to add. Okay, let's try the other one. In the other example, we do have parentheses, so let's do those first. 5 minus 2 to the negative third plus negative 2 to the 0 power. Let's deal with that negative exponent. Let's take the reciprocal, so we've got 1/2 cubed plus negative 2 to the 0. Okay, now let's take care of the exponents. So 5 minus 1/2 cubed, again we have our 1/8, and anything to the 0 power is 1. We're going to subtract. 5 minus 1/8 is 4 7/8 plus 1, so we're left with 5 7/8. Why don't you go ahead and try this one? 10 plus 4 cubed times 2 to the negative 2 power.